Hi, this is Prashant Jinde, welcoming you all for another lecture in the online series of a subject, Element of Wet Processing. Once fabric is created in the loom, it has now been transferred for wet process houses. In this wet process houses, various treatments are given to the grey fabric. List of the treatments are in front of you. After grey inspection, the first treatment fabric receives known as shearing and cropping. Here, in this process, hanging threads are cut from the surface of the fabric. A certain length of a yarn is hanging from the surface of the fabric. It needs to cut properly, and for that, a rotating drum is used that has a helical blades mounted on them. As fabric moves below these rollers with a close proximity, meaning fabric is moving very close to these blades as shown in this figure. Now you can see over here this is red fabric and which is moving very close to this roller which is having a circular blades. So these blades are placed with very close proximity to the fabric. Here fabric is moving very close to these blades but they are not touching to it. Hanging threads are cut and the surface becomes more smooth and free from unwanted hanging threads. So this treatment is known as shearing cropping. Here in this figure you can able to see fabric in the red color which is moving very close to these blades. Singeing process we already covered in the previous classes. Let's revise once again. Singeing process is used to burn the hairs protruded out of the surface of the fabric. Earlier I told you that after gray inspection the next process named as singeing. But in between the gray inspection and the singeing process there is a middle process known as shearing and cropping. Once this completed, the sheared and cropped material is transferred to the singeing machine. In this singeing machine, the protruded fibers or the hairiness you can say these are gets burnt with the help of a gas flame. After singeing, the next process is or the treatment received by the fabric is known as desizing. So object of desizing is to remove the adhesive material like starch and glues that has been added during the sizing process. So what is the sizing process? Let's look at this video first. So up till now you can able to understand how sizing process works. The warper threads passes through a size space that containing a different ingredients including the starch and then oil etc. So these starch oils those are added onto the yarn, right? So once sizing is done, the paste is applied over the yarn and then weaving takes place. So fabric still has that size paste onto them. So now that size paste become impurities that needs to remove completely. So desizing process come into the picture. So here the line diagram shows in the picture. The gray fabric passes through the desizing liquor. You can say over here there is a saturator. The fabric, which is gray fabric, is passes over the guide and then placed into this desizing liquor, or the you can say saturator, where desizing chemicals are present, right? And then once the fabric absorbs this saturator or desizing liquor, then it is then passed through the preheater or heater. Here fabric is heated at a certain temperature and then again passes over, and then it is placed into the J box. So here in this J box it is systematically piled up, and here it receives some duration or time where these desizing chemical attacks the starch material and desizing takes place. So once desizing takes place, material is then passes over the guide roller for washing. So this is a small flow chart or diagram of a desizing machine. Here starch or adhesive materials get removed and fabric is now free from the starch impurities. The next and important process after desizing is named as the scouring process. In this process, removal of hydrophobic impurities from a fabric takes place. Which are those hydrophobic impurities? Examples of those hydrophobic impurities are oil, fat, and waxes. From where they come into this picture? During sizing, for smooth process or to get a flexibility, the sizing paste contains oil, fat, and waxes. Now they become impurities and it need to remove. So initially fabric is placed into the keyer. You can now see over here, this is a keyer machine. This is also a keyer machine. It is you can say it is a pressure cooker which is present in our home but a larger in a size. Fabric along with the scouring chemical is placed into this cooker or keyer. Now both chemicals and fabric is boiled for some time at a higher or elevated temperature. Now the scouring chemical attacks on these oil, fat, and waxes. This saponifies the oil present into the fabric and removes out completely. So the scouring process removes the hydrophobic material like oil, fat, and waxes, sometimes along with organic and inorganic materials too. After scouring, bleaching is the next pre-treatment. The object of this process is to remove the coloring impurities present in the fabric. The cotton has a natural yellowish color, so it needs to be get removed out. So let's see the video how fabric is bleached into this machine. So let's see this video. Initially, fabric is taken over the guide rollers. Then it is systematically piled up. Then passed through these boxes where the bleaching chemicals are present. In this box, fabric is completely soaked up with bleaching chemical. Here for a certain time this bleached soaked chemical or the fabric is placed over here in a systematic manner. Fabric is washed multiple times. Fabric is then dried. A dried bleached fabric is guided over the guide rollers. And ultimately, once bleaching completes, this fabric is piled into a container. Now you can able to see the color of this fabric is bright white. This is grey fabric, and at the end of this machine you will get bleached fabric. Once bleaching is done, fabric becomes white in a color. Now it is ready for the next process called as mercerization. Mercerization is the process that improves the absorbency of a fabric. This is a crucial step in a point of view of further treatments. Fabric in the further treatment require high absorption. Mercerization provides high absorption. So bleached fabric is initially dipped into a mercerization liquid or the chemicals, then passes through a stretching process, and then drying takes place, and finally mercerized fabric piled into a container. So let's see the video how mercerization takes place. This is bleached fabric, passes over the guide rollers. You can see how systematically the rollers are guided this fabric. This is bleached fabric. This bleached fabric is guided over the multiple guide rollers. And then it is passed into a mercerized chemical. This white liquid is mercerized chemical. Fabric is absorbs this mercerized chemical and then passes over these small rollers. Now fabric is gripped by these pins and stretched width way. So fabric become flat and straight. This fabric is then enters into a drying zone where the temperature is all set about 45 degrees Celsius. Here fabric receives the temperature, simultaneously it gets stretched. You can see over here there are drums over which the fabric is passes. These drums are hot, kept at 45 degrees Celsius. Here the dwell period is all about 1 to 2 minutes. Drying takes place over there. In this cylinders, drying takes place. The fabric which is bleached and now it becomes mercerized. This mercerized fabric is passes over these cylinders. These cylinders are very hot. So fabric is now get dried up quickly, and this dried fabric is wound onto a roller. After mercerization, next important treatment is dyeing. Dyeing means coloration of a fabric. Till now, fabric is white in color. This dyeing process is used to apply the intended color onto the fabric. Not only fabric form gets colored in the dyeing, but dyeing is also possible in the yarn form. Now let's see how yarn is dyed and how fabric is dyed in two different videos. So let's start with the first video. Here yarns are placed into a container. These cones are placed in a line and piled up. The dyeing liquor is prepared over here in a blue color. This dye liquor or dyeing chemicals then passes through these pipes into the pump. This pump is used to pump the liquor into the container. Here, from each package, this light liquor is moved from inside out. In a second cycle, the dyeing liquor is moving from outside to inside the package. Once dyeing is complete, liquor is drained out. Here washing takes place and the remaining liquor is coming out from this pipe. Now you can see dyeing is complete and the package is removed from this container. This is happened in the dyeing is happened in the yarn form. Let's see how fabric form gets dyed. This is a fabric which is wound onto the roller. Right, this fabric is moving into this chemical bath. One roller is draw roller, another roller is winding roller. Here you can see an arrangement over here. There is two type of roller over which fabric is wound. On A, fabric is wound. This fabric is guided into this liquor and then ultimately wound on a B. Over here you can also see there are the two rollers. Fabric is moving like this through the liquor and wounds on the other roller. Our fabric is also moving like that. Here the person is making some arrangement or settings on the machine. Now our fabric become orange in a color. The steam over here is not going to pass anyway into the atmosphere because of this shield. Now this fabric is now become completely dyed to an intended color. So this machine is known as jigger. Earlier fabric was white, now it becomes orange in a color. So in the fabric form also dyeing takes place in a jigger machine. This is very simple form of a machine. The next logical process after dyeing is nothing but a printing. Sometime after mercerization, there is a direct way to a printing, skipping the dyeing process. So this route also possible, direct mercerization to a printing or dyeing to a printing. In the both way we can process the fabric and print the fabric accordingly. So this process, that is printing process, is used to print the intended color pattern or motifs onto the fabric surface. The various methods are used to print the fabric in the industry. So let's see the two videos The first video is all about saying how roller printing takes place, whereas second video shows flat bed printing method. So start with the first one. This is the rotary screen. This is the rotary screen, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 screens are present, or rather 6. Fabric is moving in this way. Blue color is applied. Initially fabric is white, now then yellow, red, blue and ultimately multicolor over here. Once fabric is printed, then it is dried. This is a bleached fabric, you can say, mercerized fabric, white in a color, guided over the guide rollers, passes over the guide rollers and ultimately under the roller printing, or rather screen printing, circular screen printing, and then printed fabric is passes over the conveyor belt. Here, this is a dryer where fabric is dried, steamed and ultimately piled up into a container. The first video was roller printing machine, and now circular screen printing machine, and now we can see the second is flat bed printing machine.
To accommodate 10 screens or more. This area is where the PFP fabric is placed on the rubber belt. This first screen is putting down black color. The screen is put down on the table, the squeegee moves from side to side and prints the color on the white fabric. The screen is lifted, the squeegee moves back, and the belt moves 24 inches to advance the fabric to the next screen. The next screen is green color. You can see that in addition to black, there is now a small area of green on the fabric. The next screen is a pink color. You can see at this stage there are now 3 colors on the fabric: black, green, and pink. Next comes purple. You can see the areas on the screen that are purple as opposed to black. Those purple areas are open. The rest of the screen is closed. Dye is only pushed through those open holes, and this is what allows the dye to be applied to the fabric. A lighter green is applied next. This color is printed on top of the darker green and in some surrounding areas to make a light and dark green tonal effect. Next comes a lighter pink. After each screen, the fabric is getting more colorful and less white is showing. A third green is printed next, and afterwards another purple. It is important to make sure all screens are perfectly lined up, otherwise you can have registration problems, where one color bleeds into another or goes out from an outline. After the second purple, a red color is applied. Some screen stations are left empty, as this print does not utilize the maximum colors that can be printed on this machine. Sometimes a drying element is placed in between screens to help dry the fabric, but this pattern does not need one. The next color printed is dark yellow, followed by a light yellow. At this point, all 10 screens have been printed on the fabric: light and dark pink, light, medium, and dark green, light and dark purple, red, and light and dark yellow. The print has a total of 10 printed colors plus the white ground for a total of 11 colors. This machine can print up to 16 colors, and the bed of the machine is very long. For flatbed printing, the longer the machine, the more colors you can print. After printing, the fabric is taken up into a drying unit that will completely dry the fabric prior to being folded and stored in a cart.
So the second video is related to flatbed printing method. The last but not the least fabric treatment received in the wet process house is called as finishing. This process is used to improve the fabric appearance, handle, and functional properties. There are various finishing treatments given to the fabric based on the requirement. But here, calendaring, sewing, and stentor machine is shown. So let's look at the video of stentor machine. The video was a bit noisy, but you can have an idea that how long this machine is. So fabric is injected from this end and it is heated to a particular degree, it is stretched to a particular percentage and then ultimately gets piled up. So this was a stanter machine, and with this we completed our flow chart. So I hope you understand different processes that involved after a weaving. So it is started with a grain inspection, then shearing, cropping, then singeing. So each process adds or some removes some impurities. Let's say after grain inspection, shearing and cropping removes the overhanging threads from the fabric. Singeing machine removes the hairiness. Then desizing machine removes the starch and adhesive material. Scouring removes the oil, fat, and waxes. Those are hydrophobic in a nature material. Then bleaching removes the yellowish color and makes the fabric more whiter. Mercerization makes the fabric more absorbent. Dyeing process makes this fabric look good with the coloring the intended color. And then printing process and finishing process. So all these processes happened in the house, in the same house called as wet process house. Now I think you come to an idea, or you can say come to a conclusion that why the wet processes house is called as wet process, because all most of the processes are happened in the wet condition.